Welcome to The Human Experience, a podcast about the stories we live out every day and the importance of championing the vulnerability and courage of the storyteller. I'm your host, Jennifer Peterkin, and it was through my own lived story of experiencing domestic violence that this podcast was created. By traveling the globe and interviewing each guest in person, I am convinced now more than ever that stories have the power to change the world. You can join our community of storytellers by subscribing, leaving a rating and review, signing up for my newsletter, following me on Instagram, and more. Thank you for being here. In a world full of noise, to listen with intention is an act of resistance. Episode 68 of The Human Experience is Nadia's story. Nadia was born in England to an Italian mother and a Chinese father. Growing up, Nadia never really felt like she belonged anywhere, and that feeling didn't magically go away as she grew into adulthood. But after a near-death experience in her 20s, Nadia was determined to find life's deeper meaning, following her heart and moving to Italy with her husband to live her dream life. She went on to create the Love Solution, Heal to Succeed, a program designed to help others through the transformational journey of empowerment, love, and light. You can find a link to the Love Solution program in the show notes. This episode was recorded in Terzo di Aquilea, Italy. Nadia, hello.
Hello.
So we are at your house right now recording this episode, which is fabulous because I just arrived in Italy this morning and we just had a fabulous lunch with vegetables from your garden. And it's still kind of surreal for me, actually, that I get to do this and I get to meet people. And you picked me up from the train station because you're so kind. And yeah, it's just been a lovely day so far. How do we pronounce the town that you're in? Because
Terzo di Aquilea.
Okay.
Terzo di Aquilea.
Okay. It's a very small little town in northeast Italy. Like what direction are we?
Yeah, that's
It's been a long morning.
Yeah, we're like half an hour from Slovenia on the east side. And an hour from Austria.
It's pretty awesome. Great. Yeah. Yeah. Is there more of a than German, Austrian influence in this part, or is it still very okay?
Definitely. We've got Grado, which is a beach town, and most the visitors are from Austria and Germany. Yeah.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, arriving here has been such a fun adventure, and I know I was telling you this earlier, but I don't think I ever would have come specifically to this part of Italy without you being here to do the interview, which again is something I feel so fortunate to just be able to do and see a new place and meet a new friend and person and hear your story. So I'm very excited.
I was so excited. when you said you were going to come, and I'm just really happy and honored to just be on your show and just meet you in person, and just we've had a lovely time over lunch already.
Yeah, I know. I know. We should have been recording it, but no, it's okay. All good. So Nadia, I would love to know, we're going to talk about your story and kind of how that has shaped who you are today and what you're doing with your life today. So we're in Italy now, but you did not grow up here. You grew up in Scotland, England?
In England. I was born in England to an Italian mother and Chinese father. And so I was always a foreigner. And never felt I was ever really fit in because, in Hong Kong, I was a foreigner. In Italy, I was a foreigner. In England, I was a foreigner. So, I was born in England and moved up to Scotland when I was 7. And again, there's that England-Scotland. I don't know if you know about this. It's, and so there was this English little girl with, with an English accent going up to Scotland. So I was just always a foreigner. I used to get bullied as a child and, being foreign and just never felt like I fit in. So that was kind of what I was as a child, never felt like I was really belonged.
Yeah. Why England? Why did your parents settle in the UK? So neither of them are from there.
Yeah, well, my dad came over he did his national service. He was, he was 18 and ended up in England and decided to stay there. He'd lost his dad as a young man and he was the head of the family. So he had to, send money home to his family. So that's what he ended up in England. And my mum from South Italy was engaged to be married, but her fiance had got another girl pregnant.
Oh.
Which is shocking. So my mum, everybody was like, oh, I'll be fine, forgive him, because that's the Italian culture. Mm-hmm. But my mum was like, there's no way. And the only way she could really get away from him was to leave. So a job came up and she left Italy to go to England. And she was really happy there in Norwich. And mum and dad met in Norwich. Mm-hmm. They met, I think they were about 32, 33. They were, quite older to me, especially in those days.
Yeah.
And they just connected through friends. And my dad, remember my dad saying that he met my mum and just loved her. And my mum saying he was a good man, and they were together. They're both passed now, but they were together their whole lives. So,
wow.
Yeah, beautiful story.
It is beautiful. We also briefly talked about this earlier. Your parents are both from different places, but they're also both from different religious backgrounds, which I think is really fascinating because your father made a sacrifice to join the Catholic Church.
Yeah, from Buddhism. Yeah, he was a Buddhist. And then, to be able to marry my mum, my mum would only, he had to, convert to Catholicism to marry my mum. And he did that. And actually he was the one that was probably more religious than she was. Yeah. Because I think that's natural when you grow up with something, it's just part of you. But because he had to actually consciously focus on, learning and growing within that religion, that he,
the Catholicism was very much inherited as well, right? Because
and his family actually, some of them actually converted to Catholicism, can't even say the word, as well, because of my dad. Because it's like his younger sisters and things. And then they went back to Buddhism eventually. But yeah.
That's so interesting. I really am fascinated by the fluidity of it as well. Mm-hmm. Just kind of moving in and out of the spaces in different seasons of life too. And
I think for me, it's had a big influence on my life because I feel that, I don't have one religion, but I've got, I like to experiment, to dive into all of them and see the synchronicities and to realize that it's all just love, isn't it? And to take that wisdom from every place. And yeah, I love the whole spiritual journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So your parents owned a restaurant in Scotland.
Yeah.
In Scotland, and it was a Chinese restaurant.
Yes.
So what was it like? I mean, I would actually really love to dig into more about you feeling like a foreigner, but just to kind of cover some of your early life, what was it like growing up in that atmosphere, having parents that ran a restaurant, just being a little kid, in Scotland?
Okay. Well, when we were in Norwich, which was a city in England, I didn't feel like I didn't know I was different because, everybody was different in the city. But when we went to Scotland, we were in a small town. So all of a sudden I was the foreigner. And so it was quite a shock to the system. I used to get bullied. I remember being chased by somebody and, being called a monkey, go back to the jungle and, things, really, it was quite brutal. But, I moved on. I'm just that kind of personality. Whereas my little sister used to kind of take that on and get really upset and really angry about it. But it wasn't pleasant. There'd be horrible things written on the public toilet walls about us and things. And yeah, it wasn't brilliant, but I always found I had some nice friends and and was able to sort of move forward that way. But just always feeling the foreigner. I always, growing up, I never felt like I really belonged anywhere, and that was for me a part of my journey. But I'm grateful for it all because it all led me to diving deep within myself and my personal growth. And I think if the way I see life is that if everything always goes smoothly, then you've got nothing to make you better. And even when I talk to my students inside my academy, you need to have that space for growth, because if everything is always just flows with ease, where do you grow? You would just not do anything. If my life was running totally smoothly all the time, I would never strive, not striving is not the word, but I'd never be inspired to be more.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so I'm grateful for all the difficult times and trying to fit into different societies and just blend in. But I never really, I was always felt like a square trying to fit into a round hole. But now I'm just happy with me, and my life has taught me that I'm just the shape I am and the size and shape that I am. And I just am, and I'm good enough just as I am.
Yeah.
Whatever I am.
And, you know, I imagine this feeling wasn't just in relation to the outside forces of, you know, what other people are saying, but also just in general, like just a general feeling of otherness or not belonging even within your own family.
Yeah, I was the middle child, the classic middle child syndrome. Felt like the black sheep, but you know, in the work that I've been doing in recent years, I've realised it's actually a blessing, because it's that drive that you need just to become yourself. I've lost my train of thought.
That's okay. That's quite
yes, but also belonging and just being happy with myself. That was it. Just, and not feeling like I was the same as my sisters. I was different, and always felt that God had, as a child, you know, growing up as a Catholic, I always felt that God had not noticed that I'd slipped through the veil. But I'm talking about being 6 and 7 years old and feeling that way, and not just playing with my friends, being carefree, sort of looking at the clouds, looking out the window, wondering, what is life? Why am I here? What's the point of it all? Wondering if the world is going round, whether I'm dreaming. But these were the things that were going through my mind at 6 or 7 years old, where, you know, probably most kids, you know, it's the furthest thing they're even thinking of. But yeah, so it's always been in me I've always been seeking answers to the meaning of life. And I just feel that's where I am now, that I'm open and allowing this infinite love and wisdom to come through me. And it's been a beautiful journey. Even the difficult things, at the time, you think, when you go through the difficult things in life, it's tough, but once you break through, there's always just a higher level. Like I feel like I've reached that heaven on earth within myself, and realized that it's not anything that you can do on the outside. It's how you feel on the inside, and how you connect with your true self that brings that true freedom of self-trust, self-love and self-worth. And yeah, that's where I am now, which I never felt. You know, I'm now 55 and I feel freer and happier than I've ever been in my life. And it's nothing to do with my outside circumstances. It's that love from within.
Yeah. It's beautiful. And I'm so happy that you have found such peace within the context of that. Growing up and having not reached that place yet, it must have been a very lonely feeling, very isolating.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I always just felt like completely unseen, unheard. Actually, in the intro of my book, The Key to Happy and Me, I can't remember exactly the words, but it's like, this book is dedicated to everybody that feels unseen, unheard, because, you know, you matter too. And that's what I really wanted to hear. That's what I needed to hear, and just say, you know, you may just be a little girl, but, you know, you matter, you know, your voice matters. And I just felt, not through any fault of my parents, you know, they were beautiful people and good examples, but I didn't know who I was. And part of my work now is I realize that I do this because there's just so many people in the world that are taking their own lives, or they're numbing their life experience, their human experience with alcohol and drugs, and just even the likes of social media, digital things. Just, they're not truly living because, yeah, they're trying to run away from who they are because they don't know and love and trust themselves. So, and they take their own lives because they don't feel like they belong. They don't feel like they're seen or heard, or life would be okay without them. And I've felt that before, even as a child. I was never suicidal, but I felt that, yeah, I could understand that. I used to pray that I would, you know, my life would end, because just the thought of having to move forward and feel invisible the rest of my life was just hard. In fact, when I was 13, the girl that lived round the back, who wasn't really my friend because she was a year older, she took her own life at 14. And I remember feeling like guilty, because I should have, I used to see her sometimes. She'd come around and play sometimes, but if I'd known, and if I'd have been able to see and connect with her. But even then, as a 13-year-old, I felt like I'd taken that on myself, but I could relate to it at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I'd had those feelings myself. But I was never, growing up again in the Catholic Church, it was a sin. So it would never, I wouldn't want to go to hell for, so that was, my thoughts. And obviously things have changed now, but that was my vision as a 13-year-old. And in my life experience, I've had so many people I know have taken their lives, and people who have come into my life whose children have taken their own lives. I mean, I know about 5 people whose children have taken their own lives in their 20s. Wow. And that makes me really sad, because they aren't alone. They are loved. And the problem isn't them. It's their relationship to knowing who they are. If they knew who they were, and this is why I do the work that I do, I help people to know who they are, because when they know who they are, they can only love themselves. And then with that comes self-trust. And when you trust yourself, you're truly free. You don't then look for other people to validate your worth. You know that you're worthy and deserving of all of life's blessings just for being you.
Yeah. Yeah. Did your family, but specifically your sisters, kind of, I guess, what was your relationship with them growing up?
We always had a good relationship. We had a good family relationship, but I never felt as good as them.
Yeah.
I never felt I could ever live up to them. And that kind of continued sort of all through my life. Not till I started doing the inner work of realizing that I was as worthy and deserving as they were. And just because they were well behaved, I was the one that used to question everything, and I was the curious mind, and I didn't just take things as a given. I would, ask questions, and that just wasn't.
Did they know you felt like that?
Well, I remember, in recent years, I've spoken to my sisters about it, and they used to kind of gang up on me as well, in fun. I mean, now,
sure.
It's not that they're not to blame for all my.
No.
But and one of my sisters actually said, I remember, they remember doing it on purpose, just sometimes just saying things just to see me, squirm, really, but not out of any malice. Again, I just felt really different to them, and I was different. Yeah. But we're all different.
Sure. And I think coming to a place that you are not only okay with that, but you feel centered in that, and not in any I'm better than them way, but just in the I'm okay to be who I was created to be. But it's hard, especially when you're young, because I think as human beings, we want to fit in no matter what, but especially when we're young, I think it's really difficult to kind of separate ourselves and value our differences in the moment. It's kind of something, I don't know that I have met anybody that hasn't had to look back and do that work later on. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love the journey that I've taken. I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, even the difficult things, the horrible things that have happened to me in my life, the things that I don't even talk about, I wouldn't talk about publicly because they're too, they're just too deep sort of thing to, just certain things have to be kept private, I think. But I wouldn't change any of them because it just made me who I am today. And it also, I love that I was always as a young woman, as a child, I was always striving. So for example, I had my own business at age 21. I had a business partner and we opened a hairdressing salon. From a little girl, I always wanted to be a hairdresser, and it was all about helping people to feel better about themselves. And so I was just so driven. I remember going at 14 years old around all the hairdressers' salons that I could, that I was able to walk to, and asking them if I could work for free. Because I was just so determined. And I remember coming out, and I was rejected by every one of them, and coming out and saying, I'm going to show you one day. And so I did. I ended up, going to college after school, getting my qualification, went straight into a job for about 6 months, but was made manageress at 18. So I was manageress for 3 years, and then started my own business at 21 and had that till I was 29, and super successful, and just loved it. But when I stopped loving it, I decided to move on. People used to look at me and say, and say to me, why would you give up such a thriving business? That's because it doesn't make me happy anymore. And that's just been my life. What I can love something, say with food, I love something until I don't, and then I'll move on. And it's the same with work. And that's what I did. I loved what I did. And when I stopped, I moved, and that's when I decided to move over to Italy. And because I think we only have one life, And yeah, I had a near-death experience in my 20s, which led to me coming over here and living my life in Italy.
So yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, when I was growing up, I always had breathing problems because I think, like, what I've learned now, it's emotional. You know, like a lot of breathing problems, not saying it's all asthma, but a lot of it, you know, it's about your food and your diet and your emotional state as well. But I hadn't realised how your emotional state affects our physical health. So I could never breathe as a child very well. I was always wheezy or, you know, got the cold or anything. But as I was growing up and I went into hairdressing, and that's when the asthma, I developed chronic asthma, and it got really bad with the chemicals and everything. And it didn't help that I used to smoke, you know, because, you know, we're talking 35 years ago. And, you know, and I was not always that bright. So I would have my inhaler and my cigarettes sitting on the desk in front of me. So, you know, so that was just crazy. But anyway, you know, we all had our cover crazy stories. That was, So, yes, so I did have chronic asthma, and I ended up going on holiday once to Tenerife, and I went on holiday for 2 weeks, and for 12 of those days I was in hospital, and I'd taken a really bad asthma attack on the first day, and stayed in my room for a day because I just couldn't walk because I couldn't breathe, and it was like the worst one I'd ever had. I ended up calling the doctor, and they took me away in an ambulance. And I thought this was funny because I didn't realise the gravity of, you know, it's like that's asthma, and I was used to it because I was used to not being able to breathe. So they took me away in an ambulance, and as I said, I was these 12 days in hospital, and the doctor said to me, "We're doing everything we can. We've given you everything that we've got, but it doesn't look good." And I was like, oh, you know, like, and I was just, I really didn't think it was bad. My mum had been on the phone. I'd phoned my mum, and she said, "Oh, I want to come over." And I was like, no, I'm fine. I was like, you know, I'll be fine. But I didn't realise it was really bad. So eventually, after 2 weeks, I said to the doctor, you know, I want to go home. It was time to go home. And they said, you know, you're not ready. My oxygen levels were so low. He said, if I'd have left it another 2 hours before calling the ambulance, I wouldn't have made it.
Oh.
So I got home from that, and they eventually sent me home. And all was well. But of course, I had another experience, and things were still the same. I didn't change anything. That was like, even though I nearly died, I didn't change anything. But a few months, I don't know the time difference, but some time after that, I had another moment. I remember being in my bedroom at home, and all of a sudden, I was in the middle of another chronic asthma attack, and I couldn't breathe in or out. So I couldn't even take my inhalers. There was nothing. There was no air getting in or out. So I basically was just struggling. And my husband now, but my boyfriend at the time, I remember me sitting on the edge of the bed, and he had the window open trying to get some air, but it's not a matter of what the air is on the outside. And I could just feel myself slipping away. And I remember looking at him, and what I found though was he was panicking, and obviously because I couldn't breathe. And so I just kind of let go because I thought, this is it. I just knew this was it. And I felt myself slipping away. And as I felt myself slipping away, I felt myself inside this golden sphere, this golden bubble of light. It was just, and so it was like I was in this bubble, and all I could feel was peace. All I could feel was love. All I could feel was light. And it wasn't like, you know, if I was at that time, think of a near-death experience and seeing the light, you think of a light being at the end of a tunnel, or there's a light over there, but the light was around me, completely surrounding me. And I just felt completely at peace. And I couldn't breathe, but I didn't need to. It was like, because time stood still. And I was inside this bubble. That's the only way I can describe it. And Gaetano was outside, my husband was outside the bubble. And I could see the fear and the panic in his face and his eyes, and he was panicking, and I was so at peace. And I was just like, I couldn't say, because I couldn't speak, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't speak to him, but I just was like, I'm going. And it was like, with my eyes, I was trying to say goodbye, and I was ready to go. And I wasn't, so I'd gone from this asthma attack, from panic, you're in this panic, couldn't breathe, to nothing. It was like, there was no more, it was just all gone, and it was just beautiful. And I just thought, I'm going, and I said goodbye, and then somehow time lapsed, and I just found myself breathing again, and I thought, oh, this isn't my time to go. So it was a beautiful moment. So like, I now do not fear death whatsoever, because I feel that I experienced it. I've seen that and felt that beautiful, loving light on the other side, even though I was still consciously, I hadn't lost consciousness.
Right.
And yeah, by some miracle, I can't tell you anything. I just managed to breathe again and I came to. And it was that moment there that I thought, I knew that I was passing through, but it wasn't my time. So I thought, now is the time to change. And it was that moment there, even though there was no hospital, there was nothing to say that was a near-death experience, I knew. And I then decided, I'm going to take my life back into my own hands. Obviously the cigarettes were gone. I changed my diet, completely cleared up my whole diet, and gave up, sugar, dairy, everything, went to the bare minimum and just took care of me. And slowly I got better. And, and I've been clean eating and eating, taking care of my body ever since then. So, and I've not had medication. I've not been on medication, haven't taken anything for like over 25 years now. And full health, I never was able to run a mile. I ran my first mile at 45 because even as a child, I couldn't run. I could run like 100 meters because I could hold my breath and run 100 meters. But any more than that, I couldn't, I used to, wouldn't be able to run in school, and we used to do cross country and I couldn't do that. So yeah, and it's that experience just changed everything for me. And I took my life back into my own hands. It was a choice, and I think these difficult situations that we have, or, maybe near-death experiences, illnesses, scares, life traumas, we can decide to either take it and be a victim to that, or we can take it and turn it around and, find that the best way for us, find that pathway. And for me, I always say that this life gives you these it gives you the whispers. So that infinite love and intelligence is whispering to us always. Now, most of us are not listening. We're that busy with doing other things. So the whispers come, that idea, that thought, I really should stop smoking. I really should eat healthy. Mm-hmm. They're the whispers. And then you get the slaps in the face where it's just like, oh, I'm feeling sick. I get ill. I'm having an asthma attack. And then what happens? Life will give you a baseball to the side of the head. And it's like, okay, I'm finally awake. Mm-hmm. And now it's time. So we've got to be grateful for all that. We've got to be grateful for the baseball bats too, because it's like, okay, thank you for reminding me that I'm in charge. Yeah. And so that was like a bat to the head for me. And and I still have them, in different areas of life and from time to time, because I'm not listening to this, but I now know. And so I'm able to catch them before the damage is done,
Yeah, I think it's so true that sometimes the biggest changes come from the hardest situations. Mm-hmm. And not that I think you have to go through that, because I don't wish that on anybody, but do you think that you would have made such a big shift had those baseball bats not come at you?
Absolutely not. Like I was saying before, when life goes smoothly, we don't make any changes because we think, oh, well, okay. I mean, it's tolerable. It's okay.
Sure.
But if we really want to live a phenomenal life with purpose and meaning and joy and vitality and health, we need to be on top of it, and it's not just about striving and pushing and doing without. It's loving ourselves to better health. It's loving ourselves to well-being. It's loving ourselves just enough just to care how we feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Loving ourselves enough to care. That's profound. And unfortunately, something that we just don't do. We don't do well. So it was in the midst of this that brought you then to Italy, going through these changes?
Yes, because, and then I realized that when I was, healing myself, my body, that all of a sudden it's like, well, my work isn't helping and it wasn't bringing me joy anymore. And I thought, no, it's time to move on. It did take me a few years before I decided to make that change, because it's not a decision you can, take your whole life and move somewhere else. But I just thought one of my life mottos is that I would rather die trying. I don't want to die. I only have one fear, and it's dying with regret. So it's like, I have little fears, but no major fears. It's more, I fear that I would come to the end of my life and wish I'd tried. So I just think, well, the worst that could happen is I could end up back in Peebles. So I sold my business, my half of the business, and just took off to Italy. But the funny thing is, when you think, like synchronicity, and we came to Italy with no jobs, no, the money that I've sold from my business, but not like enough. So I had enough money to live frugally for 5 years. That was my plan. So I thought, if all else fails in 5 years, I can live frugally. I'll just go back and start again. So that was my idea. But the funny thing is, we came here and there was these beautiful new houses being built, just next door actually. And I was like, oh, they're really lovely. And all the apartments I looked at were all kind of dark. And I thought, no, I don't like that. So I thought, let's just buy this house. So we looked into it and thought, how am I going to buy a house? We've got no jobs. And the person that was building it, we met in my sister's bar. There was somebody and he said, oh, come in, I'll let you see these houses. So we went and they weren't even finished. So we looked at these houses and I said, oh, I love it, but we can't do that. We don't have a job. And now the person who built the houses said, I don't know why I'm going to do this, but you look like I can trust you. So he became the guarantor. So he took us to the bank and we got a mortgage, and he says, and he signed as the guarantor for our mortgage.
Oh, wow.
The person who was building the house, because I don't know why. He says, I just feel that I want to do this for you. And so we bought the house and set up Gaetano's business.
And that was in this town?
Yes, it was right next door.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And sorry, had you already been to Sorrento at that point?
Yes, so we moved, so we'd gone to Sorrento, so this was in 98. I'd given up my salon, my business, and moved over to Italy. I went to Sorrento because that's where my husband's from, but I didn't settle. I stayed there for like almost 2 months, but I didn't feel like, and I felt a bit of a failure actually going back, because you're saying, oh, your goodbyes, I'm off to live in Italy. And I ended up back in Scotland. Mm-hmm. But I just thought, I can't tolerate when I'm not happy with something, I can't just make do. So we went back. I went back to England. I did some different things. I started a jewellery business. I did, I started importing Italian gold, and I've tried a few businesses, did a little bit of modelling. I did some things, but that didn't work out. But I knew I still had that pull. So this time, because I didn't sell my house before, I sold my business, but I didn't sell the house. So I sold the house. Okay. And that was the kind of, so I thought, then I've got to move, so I sold the house, and that's when we bought the house over here. And I came, because my sister lived here anyway. We came up to northern Italy, and I've been here ever since, but it's just funny how synchronicity, and this all happened when I was here visiting. The house came up and I was like, no, this is meant to be. When you just know, and you can't, there's just no denying that this is meant to be. Because I was like, no, I'm not meant to be here, because I've not got the money. I don't have a job. And this man ended up, guarantee, it's crazy.
It's wild.
I'd never met before. And we ended up becoming really good friends with family.
Mm. Well, I guess after that you would have to.
I know, but it was just incredible.
It is incredible. I've never heard of anything like that. So, yeah, there's certainly something to be said for being where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you guys, one of the other things I think is funny is all three of you sisters married Italian men. Yeah,
because that's the only one thing. My mum was always very open, and she was never controlling. She let us be what we wanted to, do what we wanted to do, study what we wanted to study. She never had a say in it. It was just like, you do what makes you happy, which was lovely, and I didn't realize at the time, now that she's been gone 20 years, I wish I could just tell her how much I love and appreciate everything that she did. She loved us enough for us to make mistakes and to make our own choices, which I think is really valuable. But the one thing, only bit of advice she ever gave any of us was, don't get involved with Italian men, because obviously she'd had her experience.
Sure.
And so, we all married Italian men. But not to go against her. It just
happened that way.
It just happened that way.
Which is kind of just funny. But
I know. So with my kids, what I do, when I've got something on my mind and I want to say, whatever you do, I keep it to myself.
Yeah, probably a good idea. You've seen that one play out for yourself. Yeah. So that's a good idea.
And then 3 years after we moved here, when I went back to Scotland the first time, we got married, and I thought, I want to be a full-time mum. That was my decision, because I had quite a difficult childhood, and I just never felt that really seen and heard. I thought, I'm going to be that mother, that perfect mother. Mm. So I wanted to start a family. So we went back to the UK, and the plan was to start a family, and couldn't get pregnant. So 2.5 years later, I just thought, I might not. You have to face, and so I think, I don't know how it's going to be. I remember I used to go and sit in church and look at families and with children, and me just sobbing, thinking this might never happen. And So I thought, I'm got to live my life. So that's when I thought, I'm going to go back to Italy. So we did that. And, I was pregnant within the year. And again,
wow.
meant to be. Yeah. So I was a full-time mum. But then only 3 years after I moved away, did my mum die. And because she was only 71, and some people that's old, but she was really fit, never ill, never been to the doctors, never had any medication. She was just really fit. She'd be running up and down that high street in our local town. And she was, and she just basically had an aneurysm and died. And my world fell apart. I mean, and because we'd had a difficult relationship, growing up, because I was, mother-daughter, and I was the one that caused her problems. We'd mended that relationship. We'd had these conversations in my 20s while I was there. But I just felt like time, she'd just been taken from me. Just when I was really connecting with her on a deep level. And that was and that's when my journey, my spiritual journey took place. I went to see my mum after she passed. I was due to come home because remember, I live in Italy. She was in Scotland. I was due to go home on the Thursday when she, the week that she died, and she died on the Monday.
Oh.
And I was just heartbroken. I hadn't seen her for 6 months because obviously having a newborn, I was I think it was about a year or whatever, but it wasn't as easy just to kind of go back and see my parents. So she just died, and I was so upset, so angry, and I was confused. I couldn't work out where she'd gone. And I remember, so on the day that she died was the Monday, and I was due to go home on the Thursday. I flew home on the Monday. And on the Thursday, I went to go and see her body. I'd never experienced death before. Not like that. It's not like I had grandparents or anybody that I'd experienced that grief with. So when I just saw my mum's body, I was unfeeling. I can't really explain it. It was like her body was there, but she wasn't.
Yeah.
And as I was going in, I went to see her, and I naively was touching her skin, hoping that she would warm up, because it's just instinct, isn't it? To do that. And I just thought, oh, she's just gone. And it just was, I was obviously distraught, but not sad. But as I was leaving the room that she was in, I felt her. I actually felt her. And, as if I was in person, I felt her spirit within me, which was just beautiful. And I can remember coming out, and my sisters, my dad were there, and, a couple of friends, and they were all standing outside waiting for me to come out of the room. And I came out, and I was just smiling. They all just looked at me like I'd lost it, but I was like, Mum has come and seen me. She's come. And it does sound, now that I'm talking about it, it does sound a bit, crazy, but I can't explain it. I just felt her.
Yeah.
And I just knew that she was okay. And still, it took me 4 years just to even accept, though, that she was gone. It was a trauma. And so I went diving deep into the spirituality. I read scriptures. I studied scriptures for 5 years, every day. I'd get up in the morning and spend an hour studying scriptures because I wanted to know. Because if she's not here, where is she? I know that sounds obvious, but when you're actually going through it, it's like, I wanted answers. Who is God? Why are we here? What's the point of life? And that's been my quest ever since, and that's been 20 years now.
Wow. And your father was still alive at that point?
Yes.
Okay.
So he went on for another 7 years without, but his life was never the same. But I used to just go and see him all the time and spend as much time I could with him. But
mourning is difficult in any capacity, but especially when a relationship is complicated. And you have good memories, but there are also some really hurtful things that have happened. It's hard to it's hard to reconcile those two pictures sometimes. And it's hard not to feel like you've done something wrong by even thinking about this person as not a perfect human being. But I think that's part of the problem, right? We aren't perfect. And if we hold other people to that standard, then we're bound to hold ourselves to that standard. And then everybody loses.
Absolutely. But, thankfully I did make peace with my mum before she passed, but there was still had so much to, so many questions, especially being a new mum. I had so many questions about myself as a child and about motherhood. And I just felt robbed. I did feel it, and it really hit me hard. And I know it's hard for everybody to lose their parents, but I think when it's sudden like that, and I just wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared, But I also believe that, you know, she didn't then suffer for a long time. She, you know, and I also believe that we have a say in how we go. You know, obviously there's no theory behind that, but that's just my feeling that, you know, we can make a choice of how we go, and not necessarily when, but the type of passing that we can, you know, and that's how I feel. And my mum got exactly what she wanted.
Yeah.
You know?
It is funny. And it just makes me think of my one grandfather for years told us, you know, I want to go in my sleep. I don't want to know that I'm going. I just want to go to bed one day and not wake up. And he said it for years and years. And then he passed and he went in his sleep. And he used to tell stories of like, you know, I woke up today and I opened one eye first and I could see my bedroom ceiling. And I thought, oh shit, here we go again. And, you know, so he would joke with us about it, but we all knew, like, Grandpa wants to go in his sleep. And we all just said, you know, well, God will do what he's going to do. And then that is exactly what happened. He went to sleep and he didn't wake up. And, you know, he was definitely a personality, and putting it lightly. He was the life and soul of the room, whatever room he walked into. And so it's also kind of a joke of like, you know, of course, Grandpa got his way. But
I do believe that we all got, you know, we can, you know, not the circumstances necessarily, but I think we get what we want. And I think, you know, like with mindset and everything, it's about, you know, you set your intentions, that's what you decide to do, and you get what you want. You get what you focus on, what you believe that you're going to have. And I think my mum got exactly what she wanted. Traumatizing for us.
Yeah.
So like I always said to my kids, you know, this is how I want to go. You know, I said, I don't want to be, you know, but I would like to be able to say goodbye to you, because I don't want you to have to live without me and just me to be taken away from you in a sudden. So I believe that's what I'll get. You know, I'll have the time to say goodbye.
Yeah.
You know, and for them to sort of, you know, say what they want to say to me before I go. So
sure.
And the thing is, again, about my dad, when my dad passed, is because when he told me the story, or heard his story about his father passing, you know, dying in his arms, I always thought to myself, I want that to happen for me. I want my dad to die in my arms. And I got it.
Wow.
So my dad had been in hospital for 3 months being ill, and I was backwards and forwards because kids were small as well. So I was backwards and forwards. And there came to a time, and Dad, you know, he'd been hanging on for days. And I know my dad, he didn't want to let his girls go, you know. And so I could see that he was just struggling to kind of just keep himself there. So I just climbed on his hospital bed, put my arms around him and just kissed him and said, Dad, when you're ready to go, we're okay. You know, you go and be with Mum. Get emotional here. You know, you can be with Mum. We'll be okay. We'll be okay. You know, it's, you know, you can just go whenever you're ready. You know, don't worry, we'll be fine. And just know that we'll always love you, and, you know, we're okay. And he just passed. You know, it's like I gave him that permission.
Yeah.
And it was, he went, and so I got my wish, you know, and he felt loved, and he was held in my arms. And it sounds like it was a lovely moment, but it was.
No, I get it. I've experienced both, being there when someone takes their last breath and not being able to say goodbye like that. And they both have their own impact. But there is something, I think especially what's poignant is the giving permission to go. I do think that's that's a bigger deal than we necessarily give credit to, that, you know, our loved ones hang on for us,
that's
not
right.
for themselves. You know,
exactly.
They're ready, but they know it's going to be painful. So I think it's beautiful that you released your dad in that way, and so important, because then he was able to be at peace.
And I think my sisters couldn't have done that, I don't think. You know, it's like I felt like I was the one that could. But for him, and for, you know, because he was obviously not okay, you know, and I was just happy that I could be there for him. And so he went knowing that he was loved and that we were okay, you know, and that's how I would like to know I'm loved when I'm going.
Sure.
You know.
Sure. I think that's a good wish for everybody.
So, I always get onto the subject of death. I don't know why. I think my life is my mum used to talk about death all the time.
Okay.
And she used to go to the cemetery. That's how she used to enjoy her peaceful time. She'd go and visit the cemetery. She'd go and put flowers on people's graves that didn't, she knew that didn't have anybody. And she just was, and I used to joke and I used to say, oh, you're so morbid, Mum. And she just, I just find peace there. But then, so of course that was kind of ingrained in me as well. Mm-hmm. And so death was always kind of we always an open conversation in our house. My mum would talk about it and how she feels about it and stuff. And she was, a good Catholic woman and, knew she was going to heaven and stuff like that. And she lived her life for that. But I don't live my life for an afterlife. I live my life now, and I believe that we can have heaven on earth. Mm. And that's what I spend my life doing, is finding that peace and love within. We don't have to wait to get out of it. We don't have to wait till we're out of our physical bodies to feel that love and peace. And that's what I feel that I am now through the journey that I've taken. So death always comes up in my conversations and I don't fear death because I've seen it and I've felt it. I don't fear it, and I don't fear it for other people. Obviously it's sad for people who have to let other people go. And I like to talk about death and my experience because I think it's also helpful to people who have lost people to know that they're okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it should be normal to talk about in a way. Mm-hmm. Obviously there are times and places, but no, I think it's just another thing that we are able to reframe for ourselves and really begin to think about differently. Because when you approach death as a privilege, because you have been blessed and fortunate enough to live such a full life, then that becomes a conversation that people, I think, are willing to have. And, not everybody does have that privilege. Not everybody has the privilege to live a life well. And so I just had a birthday a couple weeks ago, and everybody teases you, oh, you're getting older. I do more and more. I just think I am so grateful to be able to get older and to be able to still, and not just get older, but to love my life and to love the life that I'm building as I do it. Because truly, it is a privilege. I don't know why I am blessed and have so much when others have so little materially. Mm-hmm. That allows me to live the life that I've created for myself. And it's not something I particularly love about life in general, but I am thankful for what I do have. And it does make me then think about, well, you have to be thankful for the whole stretch then, including the end, and you better make it worth it.
I know, absolutely. Yeah. And I think because I've been given this second chance and I'm not going to waste it, just not living purposely, just kind of getting by. I was like, no, I want to live my life on purpose from now on. And that's exactly what I've done. And I also think about death as not being an end. It's like you're just transcending life. It's like it's an extension of that. And you're just going to another level of experience. Like as I said, you don't have to you can have heaven on earth and then just move up, and like we're talking about it in human terms. And in that sense, right. Where life's moving up, and heaven, we're just it's just like a passageway, isn't it? To love and light, but I like to bring this into this life, bring that love and light into this life, because I've felt it. Actually, my program that I do at the moment, the Love Solution, I've realized it's a 21-day audio program, and it came through me as I've written 4 books, and since I've been taking this journey and this healing journey and healed myself, all these beautiful inspirations flow through me, and I've written books and things that I could never have done without, Nadia, I couldn't have done it, but my higher self, my soul has just come through. It's just flowing out of me naturally. And this Love Solution is a 21-day audio course that I've created and recorded, and it just came through me. And so it came through me, I wrote it out, I recorded it, and then I listened to it, and it just touched me on a whole other level. And it really touched my soul to the point I'd be in tears. And I was like, how is this affecting me this way? And I've created it. But I experienced it from a whole other, so I created it from, as an inspiration, but I didn't bring it through, if you know what I mean. It kind of came through me. So as I experienced it from a human perspective, as a normal human being, I could feel that love and light. And I realized when I was telling somebody about it, that I've created that near-death experience and I've recreated it, and it's in the love solution. But I didn't know that. Like, I didn't purposely think, oh, I had a near-death experience and I'm going to write about it and I'm going to put it into a course. It's in there naturally. It just was there without me consciously doing it.
Yeah.
And so I take people through that whole journey of feeling that love and light inside that and recreate that experience. And it's really beautiful, and it is really healing for the mind and body and spirit. And it's just beautiful. But the fact that I actually put it in there and didn't know. And even one of the days I was quite taken aback with is I've even put in that near-death experience in there. Like, literally, where you can pass through and see yourself from that different perspective. And it's beautiful, you know, and as I say, and connecting with the true self, you know, who I really am.
Yeah.
But again, it would never have happened if it not for the difficult things in my life.
Yeah.
You know, because when I was 45, after having everything, had this great life, okay, my kids, so as you know, even though I lost my mum, took me on that spiritual journey, lost my mum, lost my dad, and I've got my lovely house in Italy, you know, had the pool and the garden that I always wanted, living a life that I've always wanted, full-time mum I was. And then what happened is I ended up with the deepest depression I've ever been in. Like, all of a sudden, it's like my kids were what I'd done was, I didn't realise again at the time, is that I was living my life through my kids. And I thought my life is about being a mother, and my kids' future is my purpose. I just decided that's what I was going to be. I'm going to be the best mum that they can be. And I did everything with them. They went to school reading and, you know, that kind of thing. They started school reading, and obviously they're bilingual. I was the best mum I wanted to be. But then what I found out was, even though my outer world was perfect in the eyes of others, you know, that's when I felt the worst I've ever felt, even worse than even losing my parents. I just was so low. I just didn't want to live anymore. I mean, just, again, not suicidal, because it's just, I'd experienced it in so many other people. It wasn't something I would have ever put my family through. Not that people do it on purpose, but it was more a wishing that my life would fast forward to the end. Because I was like, okay. And of course, because of my healthy eating, I thought, chances are I'm going to live till I'm 95 and I'm going to have to endure my life. And I think that, you know, and I thought, if I give up on my way of life, my lifestyle, then I'll end up just suffering. I'm still going to live long, you know? So I just wish my life would fast forward to the end. And I did hit rock bottom, and I just used to get up every morning and just do my thing. Both, you know, take the kids to school, smile at everybody. Nobody would ever known. To look back at pictures. I can see it in my eyes, but, you know, nobody else could see it.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's such a interesting, I think a lot of people have walked through that as well. Right. And so identity is such a huge part of who we are. And when we funnel all of our identity into someone or something else, first of all, we remove the responsibility or the work, right, of actually digging into who we are and why we're here and what our purpose is. But it's then not anything that you can hold on to, because, you know, it's not your kids' responsibility to be your identity for the rest of their lives, right?
But I thought, you know, I really just thought that's my purpose, is to be their mother. And,
sure.
And, you know, when they started sort of saying no to me, or, you know, I know I'm going to make my own choice, it really, you know, really affected me, because I was a full-time mum. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything else. And being in Italy, not having like my friends and my family around, and not really fitting in here, because I was, again, the foreigner. And so I did hit rock bottom. And it only, you know, something one of my children said, they were walking past, and one of them said, "I wish I was dead." And I just thought it was like, I was sitting there having my dinner and I was crying into my lunch. Like, the tears were literally dripping on my plate. And I just thought, and I kind of saw myself, you know, when like those words just hit me to the core, and I was able to sort of rise up and see myself and think, no, this is not okay. You know, like, you are not being a good mum. And it was just a decision. I think that's what it is. I think these moments, like those baseball bat to the side of the head are those wake-up calls that we need. They're absolutely necessary. And that's what I needed. And that was a decision I made there and then. I'm going to get myself out of this. I got myself out of depression. I managed to overcome, the feeling of my mum. And so I'd done the physical and I'd done the spiritual. Now it was time to work on my mind. And that was 10 years ago. And so I've been spending the past 10 years working on myself, mind, and now integrating it and realizing how important it is to integrate the mind, body, and soul for holistic healing. And now we talk about it and it's holistic, but really 1 or 2 is not enough. We have to be encompassing all of them into our daily lives to be well and to get to that place of peace and freedom.
Yeah.
And to have that deep loving connection for yourself. And it's all rooted in self-love. Now, we were talking about this before, and I'm a qualified life coach, certified life coach. And when I did my training, I was like, this is what I want to do because I want to help people in life. Because after a couple of years of getting myself out there, I thought, oh my gosh, I realized, and it all kind of clicked into place, and I needed to feel that depression because it wasn't in me before, because I was always a go-getter. So depression, me of all people, didn't think I could ever get there, but I did. So I thought it was a lesson. It was something that I needed to do. So I'm really grateful. But what it did is, help me. I want to help other people through this because I know what it feels like. And I don't want anybody ever to feel so lost and alone and unseen and unheard ever again, because that's how I felt. So that's when I, started to write and I got coaching qualification because I thought this is what I'm going to do. So I did that. But what I found is when I was starting to work with clients is that we could coaches take people from where they are to where they want to be. So it's kind of based on motivation. So giving them the tools and the motivation to move forward. But what I found was that, we could get to where they wanted to be, but they still felt empty. You see, and that's what I realized with my life. I'd had my business as a 21-year-old, motivated, great, had my business, loving it for a few years, and then still that emptiness just, was still in there.
Yeah.
I hadn't worked on that. And then again, like with my mum and having that emptiness. And so I thought I can really help people with this. And and that's when I just started writing and sharing that. But so what I do is my work is, I realized actually I am, as much as I'm still a certified life coach, I call myself a soul guide or more of a spiritual teacher, because what I do is I help people to see their true selves. I take people from, imagine building a house. So coaching is like building a house, whereas the work that I do is building the foundations. It's filling in those foundations built on self-trust, self-love, faith, just those essential components of be able to, so you can build whatever kind of life, whatever, because it looks different, success and happiness is different to each and every one of us, but it has to be built on self-love and self-trust, because otherwise we're running towards something to find something outside of ourselves to make us happy, but we will make us happy for a moment, but pure joy comes from within. So that's what the work I do is I help people to really connect, to know, and I'm good at it, to know themselves, love themselves, and trust themselves. Because for me, it's the self-trust that brings freedom. Because in trusting myself, I was able to write books when I'm not a great writer. Wrote 4 books, just allowing myself to just be me and just spill and open my heart. It allowed me to do the love solution, create and share the love solution, talk about it openly, because it's that trust in me, because I no longer think about it as like if my human self, my ego would be doubting everything. But when you completely know and love and trust yourself, everything that comes to you, every inspiration, every thought, you just act on, but with love, because love is always the answer. And it's the love for yourself, love for humanity, love for everything in the world, to bring that loving connection into your life. And that is what I believe is the foundation for life and why we're here.
Yeah. Beautiful. No notes. Do you have did you have a light bulb moment where you kind of put together the fact that all of it is interconnected, right? Like you talked about the asthma and the physical, changing your physical self, and the depression and changing your mental self and well-being and informing your identity. Did you have kind of a light bulb moment that said, these all need to be handled together?
Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't like a one moment, but what it was, I could see it and understood it, but it didn't come together till I started meditating.
Okay.
Because everything I had all these things in my head. It was just, it was all making sense. But once I was able to sort of say, people say, you should meditate. And I thought, I can't meditate because I think I've got ADHD. I've not been diagnosed or anything, but I've always got 100 things on in my head at the same time. So I was like, okay, I need to just quieten down. So I just went into meditation, and I found it really hard because I'd sit there in silence, but I've still 100 things going on in my head. And I think that's why people don't meditate, because it's just so hard, especially in the world we are living today. And that's when I created these own meditations within myself, for myself, to be able to quieten my mind. So like I've got one where we've got a lovely well outside in the garden. So it runs always, the water runs constantly. So I was like, okay, Nadia. So I imagined myself being this glass of water and all this confusion being inside. So it's like a glass of muddy water. And so I thought, I just imagined myself being this glass of muddy water and putting myself under that tap. And through that, bringing that clean, fresh water in, naturally, all the doubt and fear would just spill over the top and leaving me clear. And so that's what the meditation I created to help me to empty my mind, to clear my mind. And when I started doing that, I started to get inspiration. That's when all the downloads started to come, because I was able to empty my mind. So as much as I wasn't sitting in silence, I was just imagining all the doubt and fear melting and bubbling over. And that's actually day 2 in the love solution. But I've realized that it's all about awareness, seeing yourself. And so it was all, when I started to meditate, I would just sit there and I would write for hours and hours and hours, and it just came through me. And I think that's the key. It's shutting off your mind, disconnecting from your ego and separating the ego from who you truly are. Because again, I talk about this in the love solution, but our minds are made up of everything we've experienced in the past, okay? And our souls are who we truly are. But what happens is we get that inner conflict because we don't know who we are, what's our souls, what's our thoughts, what's conditioning. We get all confused, and so we do nothing. We try to look into it. We try to do meditation. We try to do some inner work, but it's just all so much, all just kind of meds, and it's a mess. So it's like opening a wardrobe full of stuff, and you start to tidy and you think, that's too much work, and you just shut them again and you don't do it. Yeah. So for me, it's about emptying your mind, or not now, even if you can't empty your mind, but clearing it. And for me, the water represents love, divine love. So as you pour divine love into your system, into your mind, into your heart, into your soul, as you pour it in, all the doubt and fear just naturally spills over. So instead of trying to pick through your thoughts, your doubts and your fears, you just allow that love in. And then, I can feel it now, just even talking about it. I can feel that, the tingling in my body as I say, we'll allow that love in, and it's that being open to it. So the key is being open to allowing the healing to take place. So my course is called The Love Solution, Heal to Succeed. And what it does, this is my description of it. I say it's the Love Solution, Heal to Succeed. It's a healing balm for the mind, body and soul. It's a gateway to heaven on earth. And that's exactly what it does in the tin. And the people who have gone through it, and I've got it in French and Italian and English, and it's currently been translated into Spanish as well. But my goal for this is to bring it to the world, because I believe that when we are able to look at ourselves through divine loving eyes, we'll see the truth and beauty of who we are, because we are all born into this world as pure and perfect beings. And our experiences is what our bodies are made up of everything we've eaten in the past, and our minds are made up of everything we've experienced in the past. So being able to sort of peel back that and see ourselves through loving eyes, through those eyes, knowing who we are at the core. At the core, we are beautiful, divine beings, born to love and connect, and we are all interconnected. Yeah. And when we are able to know ourselves, when we go deep enough to really know ourselves, we see ourselves in each other. And so judgment melts away. You no longer feel anger, hatred, or resentment, and you just see people as people who are not behaving in a way that is kind. If they're not kind and loving and thoughtful, then it's because they are disconnected from who they truly are. And they're hidden underneath all the weight of their experience. So my work helps them to cleanse their mind, body and soul so that they're able to see the truth and beauty of who they are. And that's why I openly talk about it. And I do believe it's there to heal the world. It's a healing modality for the world to really bring that awareness so you can see yourself, because I think that's what's wrong. People don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And when they do know who they are, they will love who they are. And I can honestly say that I love myself, which was something that I said to you earlier. My default was I'm ugly and I'm not worthy. That was from a little girl, because my sisters were beautiful. They had long, beautiful dark hair. They ate well, they were healthy, they were kind, they were sweet, and they were beautiful because they ate well. Because, Italian mothers, you've got to feed your children. And, if your children are chubby, then that means that they're good kids and they're, lovely. I was this scrawny little girl, and my hair was always cut really short because I was too thin for long hair, and I loved hair. I loved long hair.
Yeah.
So that was another reason that I felt separated, different. And so, yeah. So my default was I'm ugly and not good enough because I didn't know who I was, But if my mum had known who she was and loved who she was, she would have felt that and she would have known that, But I ended up getting a reflection of her. She didn't like to look at herself in the mirror. She didn't like having her picture taken, and because she thought she was ugly, and I was told I was like my mum. And so I believed that I was ugly. And so I was able to, through this work, through all the inner work that I've done, is detach myself from my experiences, from what I thought I was, and was able to see who I really am.
Yeah.
Which is love.
Yeah. Wow. How long have you been doing the Love Solution?
It came through about a couple of years ago, but it's been launched, I think, just over a year.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm moving through quite quickly. And again, talking about faith and trust, it came through me, but because it had that impact on me, I just did it. I just did it because it came through me. It was an inspiration, like I did with my books. I published my books, but it came through me. And because the experiencing it wasn't necessarily the creating it and the recording of it. It was the experience it and the depth of the tears I cried from experiencing my own program. I really just thought I'm just going to go through it because I wouldn't share anything that I haven't gone through myself but profound. And I listened to it and I've realized it was a 21-day program, but it's become a supplement. And so it's a daily supplement forever. And anybody that's taken it and really opened themselves up to it and who have healing from it, they listen to it daily. And it's like their daily supplement. So what other people would take vitamins to help them feel well and strong, this gets them through the day. And I take it and that's over a year and a half ago that I completed it. I still listen to it every day, and every day I get something new from it.
Wow.
Another level, because as I'm evolving and growing, it lines up and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I every day feel something new level. And I take through, like, week 1 is about healing your self, like self-love, self-trust. And week 2 is about your relationships, about healing your relationships, seeing people through the eyes of love. Because we all have difficult relationships. If we've got relationships at all, we've all got difficulties in those relationships. And week 3 is about purpose. It's because I think if you don't love yourself, it's hard to move forward at all. And your relationship they're always there niggling at you and they just hold you back, don't they? Any relationship, even work and any kind of relationships. So the final week is about really connecting with who you are and understanding your life purpose. Why you're here and who you are and why you're here. And it's a beautiful journey. And I know I created in it. And I don't think of it as me, oh, I'm so good, I've made this. It's not about me. I'm just a conduit for it.
Sure. I think that's how the best projects are, the best purposes are, right? Because, again, you've mentioned ego already, but when we are driven by our ego, obviously we make it about ourselves and we make it about, how wonderful we are and how amazing everybody else thinks we are. And it's just not about that.
No, exactly. And I couldn't do this. I don't think I could do this if it was about me.
Yeah.
But it's actually not about me at all. And if I do not do what comes through me, if I don't share this love and light and joy and the Love Solution with the world, I'm doing the world an injustice. I'm not living my purpose. I'm not doing what I was meant to be doing.
Right. And again, having it be ego driven means that you're expecting some sort of specific result from someone, right?
Exactly.
Whereas this is really created to facilitate somebody else's journey that they should already be having, but maybe they don't know how to get to where they need to go.
Exactly. And it's easy. Do you know what I love about it is it's all you have to do is listen for 15 minutes a day. And that's it. And then obviously as you open up, and what I find is the people who've gone through it, they open up like, so first, maybe sometimes it depends on your level of opening and openness to receive healing and love. So if you're open and really are looking for something just to bring love and light to your life, then you'll get an instant, it'll feel great straight. Some people just opened up a little bit, and as they move forward, they need to do it a few times before they start to really feel it. So, but it is a healing journey for everybody, and it is just beautiful. And to be witness to that, because I have like a group, a Facebook group where we, people can meet, and I do every now and again, I'll do like I did a Clean October last year. We do like 21 days together as a group, and we meet up on Zoom and stuff, and it's great. But just to see that transformation in people, and to the point, one of my clients, people were actually stopping her on the street and say, "What are you doing?" You can just, like their lives are transformed, like because that light has come on inside, because they knew it was there. They just needed that, that to be facilitated and for them to be seen and heard. And it just brought that light within them alive, because it's in within. I'm not doing anything, everything I teach is all within everybody. It's just I help you to see who you are.
You're facilitating. But I do think that there is something to be said for us helping other people, right? Through these journeys. And again, not making it about ourselves, but about the fact that we need each other to be able to walk through this life.
Absolutely.
At any stage. But even when things are good, and even when you think you're doing the right thing, having other perspectives to help you grow and move and change is never a bad thing.
I know, absolutely. Like the word always comes into mind. It's like my word is interconnectedness. It's like my favorite word. It's just knowing that we are all one. We all come from the same source, and we'll all go back to the same source. We are just expressions and extensions of that divine love and light. And our life experiences are based on how much we let that in.
Yeah.
How much of ourselves that we are being. So the more, like, I feel like I've got this heaven and earth, and obviously I have challenges, I have difficulties as well, but I'm able to transcend them, especially just to take some time with the love solution really helps. Just so if I'm having a difficult moment, just go into love solution, and I'm able to transcend those challenges and know that they're still there. That doesn't change the outside world, but I'm changed.
Yeah.
They no longer affect me or bring me down or hurt me, which is, it's just beautiful. And just to be able to see that and be able to facilitate that with other people is just beautiful. So my sort of idea to bring this is to bring the world together and to gather other light workers. I call them love and light workers as opposed to light workers, and bring them together so that they can then bring that light within themselves and then pass that on. And then so that I'm only just one person, and I'm not going to be this ruler of the world or whatever. I'm just one human being who can see the truth and beauty who I am, and be able to share that and pass that on to help other people to bring that light. So one person, one heart at a time, we can awaken these souls and just bring that light. And I think, there's evil in the world, but not necessarily evil. It's just disconnection in the world. People that don't know who they are and are behaving in a way to be seen and heard, when really what they need is to go within. And I think the more that we play our part, each of us are responsible for us, for ourselves. And now I put this out there, but I'm not responsible for everybody else's experience of it. Sure.
Or how they choose to live that out. And we had briefly talked about this before, but I think it's such a compassionate way to view humanity, to really just sit in the fact that, as I would put it, we're all created in the image of God. And so there is something so beautiful and divine that exists within us because of how we were created and who we were created to be. And so to not be so quick to write people off. And that doesn't mean that we are justified in behaving badly or doing wrong things to people, and especially hurting other people, but to really have just this overflow of compassion and grace resting in the knowledge that like that is who they were meant to be, is this just loved creature created by God and created to do beautiful, wonderful things in life, you know, and for a purpose. So yeah, I think it's really beautiful when you brought that up earlier. Mm-hmm. I've just kind of been ruminating on it a little bit. And I just think it is really such a posture of compassion that I appreciate so much. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I think we are all here. You and I are here together, and we were brought together, and we were drawn together. And yeah, it's these podcasts, it's these, you know, having these opportunities to spread this love and light, to remind people that they are truly worthy and deserving, and they don't need anything on the outside to change for them to be happy and loved, and they've got it within them. Mm-hmm. And when they see the truth and beauty of who they are, they can then, their whole perception and life experience will change within their circumstances. Like my outside circumstances haven't changed whatsoever, but my whole life experiences has changed because of my perception, my understanding of who I am, and the love and joy and peace that I have within me as an extension and expression of God. And
it really comes through when people are resting in that, right? I mean, you exude that when you are truly finding that peace and joy. And you can tell when people are struggling to find that. And I know you're absolutely right. It has nothing to do with your outside circumstances. There is something within us that we have to be able to access to really rest in that. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, there's nothing that we can chase fast or hard enough to fill that void.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's just love. It's that love from within, and that love of who you are and who we are. And, you know, and if you say that God is love, and so we are, you know, loving that love, and God is within us, living truth. And I believe that when we are happy, it's because we are allowing that love to be our leading and guiding force in our life. And when we're connected to that, we're happy. And when we're not, we're not. It's that simple. And talking about karma, you know, you sort of think, you know, people doing horrible things, it's their disconnection from love. So naturally, if people are being horrible to other people, they're experiencing that disconnection. And so they're the ones that are hurting themselves. So if we can they can still be hurting other people, but as long as we are in our love and know, love and trust ourselves, then they can hurt us less, because we are love. And when you know that, you really embody that, we're truly free.
Wow. Is there anything that we didn't cover about like your work or your story that you wanted to talk more about?
I actually can't think of anything.
Okay, good.
But
I love when that happens.
Yeah, just talk about the love solution, you know, like if any of your listeners.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll have a link in the show notes to learn more about it, but where do you want people to go?
Well, they can go to my website at www.nadiawongauthor.com, and in there you've got, you know, the love solution. I also do one-to-one coaching, and I also do group coaching, but what I'm doing is I don't kind of do that generally. It's more to bring people into my world. So if somebody knows they've got this love and light and they've got so much to give, because I know myself, because I had all this love and light within me, but I had no outlet for it. What do I do? And also you have that self-doubt when you think, I'd love to be able to share all the love and light within me, but you've got your own doubts. So I help people through. So my sort of one-to-one group clients are more people who are ready to sort of take themselves to move towards a purpose, and they can come and join my team, be part of this love solution revolution I'm starting, and to be able to bring that light to the world. Because if we've got that love and we're not able to share it, it can be painful.
Yeah.
You know, that you can't actually, and you don't have that self-trust. So I help them to build that self-trust, to know, love and trust themselves. And then they can use that love they've got and light the people within their circle. You know, it's not about changing the world and on a massive scale, but it's changing ourselves, passing that light on. And it just, as a snowball effect, will bring more light to the world. And I think that is the way, because, and if each and every one of us take responsibility for the love we are, for knowing ourselves, loving ourselves, and having compassion and love for our fellow beings, then, and spreading that light, and, just being a hand to hold and a light for somebody to go to be comforted, then we can just play our part. We're living our life's purpose. And anything you choose to do that, it's just choice. It's just whatever you want to do. But I think it's our obligation as human beings just to be a light ourselves and to love ourselves. Because when we know who we are, we'd only love other people.
Yeah.
And when you see people behaving in a way that you don't like, you have compassion for them. You have, the difference between empathy and compassion. When you have empathy and you feel sorry for people, one thing to feel their pain, but compassion is about what you do about it.
Yeah. Compassion is action. Yeah. Beautiful. I love it. And I just love your journey and how you have embraced the different seasons of your life to come to this place now where you are just flourishing and ready to give that back, and put that back into the world, which I think is just such a mark of growth, right? When we are able to be so at peace with who we are and know what we have to offer to the world, and to be able to then just put it back out there to help other people.
Without anything in return, without, you've got your ideals and what you would like to happen, but it's so you can still do things and have a big vision, but without attachment to the outcome.
Yeah. Yes.
Knowing that if I was to die tomorrow, that I've played my part and I can rest knowing that I've, been that light.
Or if I never make another dime, but I know that this is helping people, that matters. Yeah. And it brings me absolute joy. Yeah.
And that's why I do it.
That's clear. That's clear in how you speak and how you are in your hospitality. So it's been an absolute, authentic and beautiful.
It's an absolute joy meeting you, and you are such a beautiful soul, and I just love your work and the fact that the reason why you do things. And again, it's everybody has got their own gift, and we've got to use that and fulfill ourselves. You think of it as being selfish, but you've got to do what lights you up, because whatever it is, it will serve the world in some way. Yes. And I think that same word, interconnectedness, you're bringing people together. Like even this conversation is going to reach people and help them to see themselves in us, in both of us, and know that we are one, we are love, and we are deserving of love, joy, and happiness and peace, and whatever we want in life. We're all worthy and deserving. Love is always the answer. That is my life motto. Love is always the answer. And the love solution. That's why I've got the love solution.
Yeah. I love the name, the love solution. It really encapsulates all of it. Yeah. It is the solution.
Yeah.
So I do have one question that I ask everybody at the end of each episode, which is, through the lens of your experience, we've kind of already answered this, but we're going to do it. Through the lens of your experience, what does compassion mean to you?
Compassion is action. Again, like I said, with empathy, you can feel for people, but feeling bad. In fact, I'm just going to go into another story, is that I used to think of myself as an empath, and used to think it was a good thing, and to be honest, it was a good thing because I suffered. It made me see life through other people's eyes. So I'm glad I went through the depression, because I was able to see somebody with depression and know what they're feeling. So that was empathy, which is a good thing. But if I just take that feeling and feel bad, that doesn't serve anybody. So being an empath isn't necessarily a good thing without compassion. The compassion is taking what you've learned, taking those feelings and turning them around, doing what you can. So it's the words, for me, compassion is, what can I do to help? So. Yeah.
And realizing that's not a one-size-fits-all answer.
Exactly.
And it looks very different for different people in different situations.
And just being you is enough. And just being there with an open heart, open mind, and open arms is compassion.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Thank you again for having me into your home and doing this in your office and after a lovely lunch. It's just been such a joy to talk to you.
I know, it's absolutely, I've had so much fun. It's
good.
Still got more to go. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to The Human Experience. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, share it with your friends and family, share it on social media, and rate and review it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also support the podcast financially by going to my website, thehxpod.com, linked in the show notes, and clicking on Donate. It takes a lot of time and resources to create this podcast, so every little bit helps. Everyone has a story, and I'd love to hear yours. So be sure to check out the show notes for more information about how to stay in touch. Do good and love well.